Parshas Boy Tovshin Pei Gimel. This is actually, I believe, the only week of the year that however you say the name of the Parsha, you can't get it wrong. You know, usually we try to make sure we pronounce the words correctly. You know, Parshas Mishpatim, right? Parshas Vo'era. But Parshas Boy, you can't mess up. So this week, it's actually a very special Parsha, very special lesson for every one of us, for all of us, Klal Yisrael, that are in Golus. The lesson that really needs to be learned, and the lesson that we see, is the fact that just a couple of weeks ago we went into Mitzrayim, and now, 2 weeks later, a couple of weeks later, Parshas Boy, we're out. You know, when the Rebbeinu Shalom decides that it's time for the Golus to end, it's not going to take long. We're just going to go. And you see, this week, Klal Yisrael, the last three Makkos are in this Parsha, Arbe, Choshech, Makkas B'choros. And then not only did they get out of Mitzrayim, but they were chased out of Mitzrayim. They couldn't get out fast enough. And we're hoping that that will be a lesson and an indication of the Geula that we're all going to see very soon. That when the time comes, that we will not be able to leave or to go fast enough. I know some people are going to have to come to terms with leaving their nice homes and cars and whatever else you might have to leave here. I mean, the things which have Kedusha, the things which have Ruchnius will go with us to Eretz Yisrael. That's why it's good to inject Ruchnius into everything in your life and everything that you have, so when Moshiach comes very shortly, you'll be able to take it along. But otherwise, you're going to have to leave everything behind because nothing's going to be important. And the key words that we say many times in davening, we say many times, we say it in Kiddush, the words Zecher Litzias Mitzrayim come to mind. And it's a term that we're all very familiar with. But you know, it's actually a mitzvah d'oraisa. Very interesting. To remember, to think about Yetzias Mitzrayim is a mitzvah d'oraisa. The pasuk tells us, "Lema'an tizkor es yoim tzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha." You have to remember, you have to think about, you have to recall our exodus, our leaving Mitzrayim. Chazal, Masechta Brachas, Taf Yud Beis, Amud Beis, tell us very famously that Yemei Chayecha, the words Yemei Chayecha, we have to remember, Yetzias Mitzrayim, Yemei Chayecha teaches us the days. And Kol Yemei Chayecha, that extra word Kol, adds on, not only during the day do you have to think about or remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, Kol Yemei Chayecha, it adds the night too. That we need to think about Yetzias Mitzrayim in the day and at night too. So we really need to understand the great importance that is placed on remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim all the time. To remember, to think about something, a mitzvah, to think about it in the day, in the night, all the time. It must be a very, very important thing. And it seems to be that it's even more than other mitzvahs. By other mitzvahs, the mitzvah is really only during the day. But here, you see, we learn from the pasuk of Kol Yemei Chayecha that you need to think about Yetzias Mitzrayim in the day and in the night. And as we always say from the Nesivos Shalom, that the Torah is here to teach us today, in our generation, to teach us lessons for our way of life. So what is it that this great emphasis of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim, is actually teaching us today? So Nesivos Shalom tells us that Yetzias Mitzrayim is actually a very important and ongoing lesson and an ongoing subject. And it's a subject of seeing Tumah of the times, of looking around the world, looking around at the world all around us, and constantly working on a Yetzias Mitzrayim, your own personal Yetzias Mitzrayim. There's a Mitzrayim that's a geographic place, and that we know is in Mitzrayim, Egypt, somewhere in the Middle East, right? But there's also a Yetzias Mitzrayim of extricating yourself, taking yourself out of the Mitzrayim of today, to work day and night, knowing that the purpose of our existence is to look around the Golos, to look at the Golos around us, and understand how we are not supposed to be acting like the Goyim, how we're not supposed to be mimicking and trying to follow the latest trends and the latest things that are going on by the Umas Ha'olam, that are going on by the other people of the world. We are supposed to constantly be having to fight that Yetzer Hara, to fight the Yetzer Hara of today, to fight the Yetzer Hara of the Mitzrayim that exists all around us. And part of that lesson, says in Nesivos Shalom, very important, we need to know that part of that lesson, and that it's not only during the day. The day refers to when things are going well in your life, and you're not so being overcome by the Yetzer Hara at that moment, when things are going a little bit easier in your life. So maybe then it's easier to fight the trends and the current styles and things that are going around us in the world. It's easy to fight that. But the lesson that we're learning here is that it's Kol Yemei Chayecha. The Torah has that special word of Kol to teach us that even during the nights, and the nights refer to when it's dark, when it's tough in your life, when you're struggling through whatever part of your life you may be struggling, and everybody goes through those times and goes through those days and goes through those moments. So the lesson of Kol Yemei Chayecha teaches you that even during those during those nights, during those times where it's more difficult in your life, you still have to and you should push back of the Mitzrayim of today. Push back, understand that your Hatzlacha and your coming out of that matzav is totally in you pushing back at the Mitzrayim of our times, and you need to constantly be working on that. And as we know and we say in the Kiddush, every Shabbos, every Yom Tiv, Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, we're constantly reminding ourselves of our job. That's our job. Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, to look around whatever day of the week it is, whatever Shabbos it is, whatever Yom Tov it is, wherever you might find yourself at that time, we need to look around and fight the Mitzrayim of today. But the Nesivos Shalom asks a beautiful question. The question is, we know that by Yetzias Mitzrayim in the Torah, in our Parsha, in last week's Parsha, when Hashem, in Parsha Shemois, when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that I'm choosing you, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to be the one to take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. And the Mefarshim tell us that when the Rebbeinu Shalom was telling Moshe Rabbeinu that he should take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, Hashem was telling Moshe that only you could do it. We need the great koyach and the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu to get out of Mitzrayim. So the question begs to be asked, says in the Nesivos Shalom, we're saying now that Yetzias Mitzrayim is a thing that goes on through every generation, and it's talking to us today, and that we have to be fighting and taking ourselves out of the Mitzrayim of today, the Mitzrayim that's going on around us. But look in the Torah, when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, Hashem was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, no, only you can do it. We need the koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu. So how is every one of us supposed to get ourselves up to that task to fight the Mitzrayim of today, to have our own Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim? How can we do that? If it was just Moshe Rabbeinu, none of us is on the Madrega or comes anywhere near to the Madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu. How do we do that? So Nesivos Shalom says that we need to understand that when it says that it requires a Moshe Rabbeinu to take us out of Mitzrayim, it's not talking dafka about Moshe Rabbeinu the person. It's referring to the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu. You know how you take yourself and you fight the Yetzer Hara, you fight the things that you're struggling with, you fight your own personal Mitzrayim? That's what the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu, not the person. No person today is going to be no one's going to be on the Madrega, a Navi. No one's going to be like Moshe Rabbeinu, the person. But we need to understand that what fights Golus, what fights the Yetzer Hara, what fights the good fight that we need to fight today is the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu. To be like Moshe Rabbeinu, to be humble, to be like Moshe Rabbeinu and understand really who we are in comparison to Kaviyachol, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by a person being mevatel themselves and being exceptionally humble and understand that we actually fall, that we have faults and we're not perfect and we need to address those faults and we need to work on our faults by being humble, that is the Moshe Rabbeinu that can take us out of our personal matzav of Golus. And there are times when Geula comes from excelling at Torah and mitzvahs. Of course there are those times, but there are tough times too. And we were talking about those times when it's night, times when things are not going so great in our lives. There are times that Torah and mitzvahs are not going to pull us out of the Golus. During those times when we don't have enough schusim, the Geula comes from the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu, not the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu, from the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu. By us concentrating on and knowing our insignificance in comparison to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and always thinking about the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and where we fall in that equation, how we are fallible and we are just human beings that have faults and have things that we need to work on. And that is the idea, that when the Torah talks to us, the Torah is not telling us just history, things that happened over 3,000 years ago, Yetzias Mitzrayim. When the Torah talks about Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's speaking to us about the Yetzias Mitzrayim of today. That every day and night in our lives we're supposed to remember that. L'man tizkar es yom tzeischom eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha. Every day and every night to think, how can we be acting? What things can we do that are not always particularly easy? Things that we need to work on, things that we need to push back on, things that we need to fight to take ourselves out of our own Mitzrayim, to be humble, to understand that it takes a Moshe Rabbeinu to take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, but it takes us using the midah of Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe represented Moshe Rabbeinu the most, the midah of anava, the midah of being mevatel yourself, and through a person understanding who they really are and what they really are. And once again, we have to always repeat, not by looking at other people and not saying what other people's faults are, and not discussing other people's faults, and not talking about other people's faults, not discussing Lashon Hara about other people. We should all have enough to focus on ourselves, our own things that we need to work on. And believe me, if you just work on yourself, you won't have time to worry about other people. That is Yetzias Mitzrayim of today. And that is the Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. When you say it this Shabbos, have that in mind. Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. To work on taking ourselves out of our own personal Mitzrayim.